What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Canescast. I'm Phil.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Garrett back with you. We're so excited to get the season started.
We're pumped. We're finally at the moment that matters here the most. Opening game Friday. So we're right around the corner as we're recording this on Wednesday, 48 hours away. So we can't wait. Miami versus Miami. Going to get things kicked off there. We're obviously excited to do a little bit of prediction here, kind of what we think, what needs to happen, comments that were made. But first, I want to touch on some news that took place today, and the addition of Jamil Burroughs from Alabama, immediate eligibility. That's huge. He's on the roster for the 2023 season. A big space eater like that on the defensive line is something that I think that we need. Adds experience, obviously coming from the SEC. It just, continues to cement that we've done, to me, a really good job of righting the wrongs that we had last season. Jettison guys out that probably didn't, or maybe didn't want to be there. Obviously, getting guys back from injury this season is huge. But the transfer portal, recruiting, and the coaching staff turnover to fit the personnel and get us going in the right direction, I think is just gigantic. And it is true optimism. Last year, we were walking into not really understanding how much of a rebuild we were undertaking. And it was a big one. And obviously things fell apart at any way that they could. But we know this team has talent. We know this team added a lot of talent. And I'm excited when you add another guy like that, that's just going to really just help, eat things up in the middle and, let our linebackers feast. I'm excited to see what Flag can do in this defense. Magoa out there, it's going to be big that, he's going to be a leader for us on defense. So I think this is going to be big for the linebackers. Garrett, what do you think before we dive into this Miami showdown here? Or what shouldn't be a showdown, hopefully not anything close. But what do you think of the the addition today and kind of last thoughts on the offense or the roster, excuse me, before we jump into the season?
Well, I do think it was important to get another defensive tackle. I think that's our spot that we really missed on in the recruiting cycle this last year. I think it was a big problem, for our team last year. We, just had no consistency, no push, no run stopper outside of Gerald Jackson, which we know has moved on. So replacing that big fella was a really important thing. And when you pick up people from Alabama with all the success and everything that they've had lately, I guess that's probably the best thing you can do right now. Instead of waiting for a guy to get his feet wet and hopefully he turns out, you get a player that's played some snaps, big time college football player, in a big time setting like that. So I'm definitely excited about that. If we want to touch on this past weekend where there was a miss on the defensive tackle as far as a recruit, I sat and watched that game. Certainly, he's a talented kid. Not that I didn't want him, but we did get the safety from Shamana Madonna. So one for two was a really good haul for the the weekend last weekend. So it's so important that this year we show these kids that there's progress being made. We got coaching staff in place. We got hard workers, good players, good teammates on board, because this class that's coming in this year is a really, really, really important one. Mario Cristobal did an amazing job and got a great class his first 2 years, coming in and really putting a great class together in half a year, half a season, and then followed it up with a really good year. We have to have success on the field. This is these times where 2 or 3 seasons into a new coach, we fall apart, the recruiting class all decommits, and things just really never get back to where they're supposed to be. So performing well on the field is huge for the fans, for one. I mean, I know you and I are tired of watching our team struggle so much. So getting good players, I think that was a good pickup. I'm really excited. What we got going forward for this next year.
No, I am too. And as far as the stone miss that you're referencing, I think these guys are not, it's not done until it's done, right? You can commit, and even the guys that we have, like, that's why you're saying what you're saying here. We got to keep this class. These guys are committed. We have a great class, and you're continuing to add to that. Obviously, the class will get better after the season. Nobody would have ever thought that we had any business having the 7th ranked class. I mean, people still believe in Cristobal. We know he's a good coach. We know he can win. We know he can take talent to the next level. In the second year of him, coaching 10 years at places, he's done really well. So it's a big year to continue that trend. And to touch on your point about taking guys, from Alabama, the transfer portal is like it's college free agency, right? So when you have that ability to supplement in places with the development of your own guys and then bringing new guys in and letting them come along at a pace where they can succeed, that's when you become that well-oiled machine that we were for a long time. That's minus the transfer portal wasn't really a big thing, in the heydays of us with the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. Transfer portal, obviously, it's just the last couple of years, it's really taken off. But there was transfers in college. It just was different. But now you have that ability to kind of tread water at a position. You get a guy who has more experience and you can kind of, break a guy in as opposed to letting a true freshman or having to rely on true freshmen all the time, which can pan out, or redshirt freshmen, which can pan out. But we know it's not always the best recipe because there's just a body difference from when you're 18 to when you're 22, 23, 24. Some of these guys would be 25. And then there's a body difference too for the guys in the NFL. When you hit the 30 to even like 36, is just experience, technique. All these things matter. And it's great to see that slow burn there and able to kind of pace guys in. But yeah, winning on the field is what matters most. And we got to see it. We got to see those results because that's why you play. You play to win. We've heard that cliche 1,000 times, but that's what you do. Now on to Miami versus Miami. Obviously, the big things that we'll touch on is this kid, Gabbert, Blaine Gabbert's brother, talking at Miami that, they're the real Miami. Now, I want to make something really crystal clear here. Even in the event that we lost, we know that they're not the real Miami. We're going to get clowned for it. And that sucks. We hate that. We don't want any part of that. But they're not, their program it could play for 50 more years and we don't play another game and they wouldn't capture 4% of anything that our program has established. So as the real Miami, yeah, they existed first, but that's about it. They're not there's no threat to that. But hey, we know that we will be clowned if we don't win. I want to say history on this. The teams played in like 45 and 46. Miami won both. And the last time these two teams played was in 87. We beat them 54-3. Obviously, that was, a different kind of Miami team than we're talking about right now. But let's be realistic. This shouldn't be a contest. We saw this last year with games. We were in games we shouldn't have been. We talked a lot about the Clemson game. Had it not been for the offensive miscues and the inability to move the ball at all, we really turned them over. We played well at points of that game outside of the offense. Lost a lot of games on just weird plays last year that you could really feel the momentum shift. I'm not making excuses. We were bad last year in offense. Absolutely. And we need to be better. But you could feel momentum in places where it was like, man, if that play went our way, it changes the game. So there's a lot of things here looking at it that like, we know the talent's there. And this all comes down to like Middle Tennessee. Everybody wants to point at that. No business losing that game. No business losing to Duke. Well, here we go again with a game we have no business losing. I like the comments that I've heard. I can't remember off the top of my head, but who responded to his comments saying, we're not looking at that. We're just focused on the game. That's good. That's good. But that comment also needs to matter because old Miami teams, Miami, like we know it, would have heard that and been like, okay. Miami of Ohio is not going to be the same the rest of the season after game one because of those comments. And that needs to come out on some level because there's an attitude shift that Cristobal is very aware of, that he was in, winning championships in. When you disrespect the you disrespect everybody, and this needs to be taken out. We're 16.5-point favorites as it stands right now. There is some learning curves, right? New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. So maybe it's not the full beatdown that we expect or that we could see. But let's be real here. This game doesn't need to be close. And we need to score this. Whatever we hit needs to be above 30 points to me. And I guess we'll see if that can stay true at the end of the game. If we look back and there's 20-0, looks a little different than we thought or something like that. Games are never going to play out exactly like you think. But we need to handle this team. And it's just based on the fact of the comments that were made and what was said, like what the narrative is, Miami versus Miami. In the grand scheme, it's nothing, but you don't – the season will just get off to a sour note if you somehow come out and double down on the mistakes and crap that we saw last year. Just can't happen.
Well, and I mean, to piggy off your point of, if we don't lose that game last year to Middle Tennessee State, I don't think we're in this coming into the season as tentative. To be honest with you, man, having watched, what in the last 5 years, let's lose to FIU and Middle Tennessee State, two programs that we should beat every time we step on the field with them, just on, the program, the talent, all that stuff. So that's what I'm, I don't want to sit here and say I'm just flat out expecting a win, because I think I'm going to try to do a better job of, being a little more partial, and then I'm not as devastated when things don't go so well. But, this is a game we should win. There is no reason why we shouldn't put up 30, 40 points. And, I don't see how they're going to put up more than that, to be honest with you. It's funny that the line has come down a couple points, really in the last couple of weeks, but not a lot. We're still favored, right? But that to me is not as big a deal as getting back to having people afraid to come into our house. That's the most disturbing thing that we saw last year. People do not fear Hard Rock, and that is a problem. And like you and I have talked about in the show, that is an atmosphere that competes, I would say, on any football program in the country. When things are going well, and we're packing that stadium, that's a good home field. I don't see why we can't take more pride in protecting that protecting our home field. That's just what's so. I'm so looking forward to seeing if we're ever going to get that back. Get that back. We are the program that has a 58-game home winning streak. I mean, in Clemson, if they hadn't lost that game last year, I mean, they were knocking on the doorstep of getting in that same ballpark. Think about that. That's 6 games a year you play at home. That's 10 years we didn't lose. 10 years, a decade, that we had so much pride in that, the old Orange Bowl, that we would literally, make somehow FSU push a field goal wide. You know what I'm saying? Those kinds of things happened in that stadium because people weren't walking into our stadium with confidence. They weren't just expected to go out there and throw 80, 90-yard bombs behind our secondary. That to me has got to change. So what I want to see is, are we going to come out firing? I'm tired of watching us come out with a, lethargic start, punting 3 and outs, all that kind of stuff right off in the first couple of series. We got to come out, get established that we're the more physical team. You know what I'm saying? Nobody would talk this kind of smack about the programs that are winning ball games consistently right now. The fact that we're in this conversation with a program that has our same name is really, not all the best. I'm not excited about that part. So we got to start getting our identity back. What is our identity? We have none. And that's what I'm most looking forward to seeing in this team this year. What is the identity? Is it the strong passing game? Are we going to somehow just, smash people and run the ball and break big plays for 60, 70, 80 yards all the time? I think we got the backs that can do that. Are we going to be a defensive-led team? You know what I mean? We have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. What is the identity going to be? That's what I'm so looking forward to. And getting back to establishing our program as a program with pride. You know what I mean? I know we've said it before, but watching our 2 quarterbacks in the last game of the season last year on the sidelines with 2 or 3 minutes left, joking and laughing and not really beside themselves was completely wrong in my opinion. You know what I mean? Both those guys are back. I don't wish ill will upon either one of those guys. I love them, but I better not see any of that shit ever again. Excuse me. I better not ever see any of that ever again. Because as a fan who, looks so much forward to these games, someone that's putting some time and effort into talking about this team, and I just feel like, the most disheartening thing is when you feel like you have more pride than the people that are on the field, and that to me is the first thing I got to see that to believe that we are going in the right direction.
Yeah. And I mean, you're right. It comes down to pride. It comes down to effort. And it comes down to, first of all, this whole thing that we've watched forever, where you talk about guys fearing to come in. It's because, yeah, like you said, we didn't lose, and that magic continued. It was just like, you're just not gonna lose. We're at home. We're not gonna lose. We're just not gonna do it. That was at the Orange Bowl. You talked about wide right three. I was at that game when I was little. I mean, I remember going to the Orange Bowl, watching those teams. I remember before I really even cared about football. Let's to put this into kind of some perspective. I mean, I grew up wearing these colors of the Dolphins, of the Hurricanes, the Heat, the Marlins, like, the Florida Panthers, all my squads. And I remember having conversations with people. My dad, we would talk about games when I was getting into it when I was really little and bring it up. And the Hurricanes were playing, and it was just like, well, it's fine. They're going to win. They always win. That's just what it was. That's what it was. That's what it felt like when I was little. That's what I grew up with, where it was just like, they're going to win because they always win, right? That's not even a thing. Like, I wasn't concerned with them not winning the game. And that's, obviously you don't know a lot when you're little. I'm talking, I was a little kid, but that's cool that feeling was there. And I'd like to get back to that feeling. Now you're talking about the fear thing. Yeah, it's the smoke. It's coming out. It's not resting on your laurels. I think that's what we have a lot of. I think you have guys that come in that are talented, know they're talented, despite the struggles. Our guys have still gone out there and been successful pros. So that's part of the issue. It's because these guys have come out. And I think as great as our alumni program is, some of these guys come in and they see these guys and they go, wow, and they were chasing the bag. They were leaving too early, and that hurt some of them in some cases. But also the bigger problem to me is just college football. You lose a game, man, your season's kind of on ice here. You lose 2 games, oh, forget it. We can't play for anything truly meaningful because our season's done. The college football playoff is no longer in effect. It's no longer an option. Before the BCS, that was no longer an option because we lost a couple games. Now, as the playoff starts to expand, that's huge. That's huge to me because it gives teams an opportunity for room for error. So you can drop games and survive. And that's just absolutely huge to me. But you're right. It's coming out here, putting your foot on the gas and saying, this is Miami. This is Hard Rock. I've been to many games. Since they've been in Hard Rock, they were completely sold out and rocking. I mean, that Virginia Tech game, the Notre Dame game, the next year against Florida State, when we came back from 27-7 and beat them, the stadium's rocking, going crazy. That stadium gets loud. We've heard Kirk Herbstreit, who's at every game, say it's the loudest stadium he's been in. We know the home field is there, but you got to back it up. And like you said, you can't want it more than the players want it. For me, I'm not condoning cheap shots or violence or anything of that nature. But this whole thing, which I'm not going to do here, but when they throw that down because it's sacrilege, I'm not throwing that down. When people do that, that needs to piss someone off. I don't care if I honestly wouldn't be upset if someone got ejected, because for once it would show some fight to say, you know what? No, that's not happening here. They might want to do it if they score a random touchdown, but it needs to be meaningless. It needs to be meaningless. It can't matter. It can't matter. It can't be doing that. And we're going to keep doing it because we're coming in and punking you because you guys have quit. That's what it's looked like. It looks like, you know what? Game's over. We don't care. We're not going to fight. That attitude, I think, has largely gone out the door. We're replacing it with guys, again, that are returning because they want to. Guys back from injury, depth pieces that have really improved, and transfers and guys that know what it's about. It has to mean something because the U is always going to be one of the biggest brands. It is one of the biggest brands, and it's always going to garner attention, like we've talked about. We'll put our little brothers in the state, Florida and Florida State too. When they're on, people want to watch, good or bad, because their names, their draws. So Miami, and people love to see, and I will say that this isn't a thing as much, it's getting overplayed. We should dominate this game, but Miami versus Miami, if there was an Alabama versus Alabama, it would be talked about on some level, even though Alabama's going to cruise. The Crimson Tide, I should say. It would be talked about because it's the same name, so it's interesting. But that's all this needs to be. It needs to be talked about now because it's interesting, and then forgotten about. And then next week we need to turn our attention to Texas A&M, and this needs to be a get your feet wet. Let's try things out with the offense. And like I wanted to touch on real quick, you were talking about what's our identity. For me, I believe our identity on offense should be the ability to strike quickly and have big plays. Based on the offense that we have, it's going to be a lot more similar, Dawson's offense, to what we saw with Rhett Lashley, that saw Van Dyke win ACC Offensive Rookie of the Year and the overall Rookie of the Year. And on defense, I believe that it's getting after the quarterback. I believe that's where we'll pin our ears back and get after it, and those should be our identities. Now that can change. We might run the ball down people's throats right now. That's what I think. Doesn't mean that it'll happen. We will see as the season plays on. But that's where I'm at right now. I know we're getting ready to wrap this up, Garrett, but I just, last words from you on what you think is going to happen. Give me a score prediction because we got to do it. And then I'll give you mine. And we'll wrap up Canescast for the first week before we get back for more, guys. We're excited to be back. But Garrett, what do you got for me here?
All right. I'm going to say the final score will be 42-28. I think the Canes are going to win, obviously. Go Canes.
Anything else you want to add? Something you're looking forward to seeing or anything like that before I throw it back to me?
I do think it's important, like you said, to strike quickly, have explosive plays. So I want to see the Tyler Van Dyke that can throw a bomb for 70 yards. I'm really excited to see Ray Joseph, how this kid's going to come in and what's he going to look like. I've heard nothing but good things about him and what his potential is. So, getting him in, seeing Colby Young take the next step. I'm really excited for a big physical receiver. What I again can't understand is this is a talented team again. We have talent everywhere. There's talent in every part of the team. So putting it all together and not playing down to the opponent, that's what I want to see. I want to see us dominate a football game like the old days.
We did see that, with Bethune-Cookman and things like that last year. But you're right. I would love to see a game like this where we get to see Jakari Brown come in, Emory Williams come in. We get to see these guys come in because the game's not in question. Obviously, if the game's tight, we're not going to see that for a little while. But to me, Van Dyke doesn't need to be in the game past the third quarter. I want to see guys. I want to see how Van Dyke does. People are talking about his finger. We haven't touched on his finger. And guys, the reason we haven't touched on his fingers because everything we've heard is a couple weeks. This happened a couple weeks ago. This leaked late. Happened a couple weeks ago. His finger's good to go. He's 100%. He should be fine. I'm excited for that. Obviously, we don't want to see anybody hurt. But I want to see the leaders of this team. When I say the leaders, I'm talking Van Dyke. I'm talking about Colby Young. I expect to see big things from in the wide receiver room. I think Jacoby George is going to take steps forward in the wide receiver room. I want to see the offensive line become that wall. Javion Cohen, his debut. Matt Lee, the highest graded center in college football last year, his debut. How this offensive line starts to gel. That can take time. I want to see how that comes together. On defense, I want to see Magoa at linebacker. I want to see Cam Kitchens. I want to see Akeem Mesidor. I want to see guys that are the leaders of this team take that step and really put their mark. So we see them right away. I want to see these impact plays. I want to see these plays early. I want to see these guys leave their mark and say, you know what? And kind of like we are turning the page a little bit that you don't leave this in question. So I want to see how the new guys perform and hopefully we see a lot of depth. I honestly don't mind kicking a lot of field goals. I think we have arguably the best kicker in football, college football. So I want to see him be able to take some shots and kind of get some idea on range. I don't want to necessarily have to settle for field goals. But it'd be cool to see that. Just I'm reaching here. I'm talking about everything. I want to see the full expansion here. And I know that we will in games like Bethune-Cookman and stuff like that. But it'd be fun to see it week one really get off on the right foot here. So guys, I'm excited. Garrett's excited. Football's back. And the expectation for me here, is that when I'm talking about predictions, Garrett dropped his on the game prediction here. I think anything under 40 points. So yeah, I'd say 45 to 13 is really what the score needs to be. I'll probably be wrong. I'm sure I guarantee I'll be wrong on what the final score is. That's hard to predict in general. Probably a bigger gap. I think the defense needs to show up. Our defense was one of the only things that went well at times last year for us. So the defense needs to show out and be pissed and leave its mark. And I don't want to see many points. Hopefully that 13 at the end of it, you can remove the 1 and the 3, and it's just a 0. That'd be super cool. But obviously, we expect to give up points. But answer. Don't lay down. Don't quit. Don't come out and rest on your laurels. Like I said, get out there, go after it, play Canes football, and start the season out on the right foot here, and let's get going strong. I'm excited. We'll be back next week, guys, to talk about what we saw, and obviously a big one with A&M, which we need to figure out a way to get that one too. Obviously, it's a lot more talent. Talent level is going to come up, but we watched that game last year. We'll save it for next week. Can't wait, guys. As always, it's always all about the U. Go Canes.
One more thing, Phil, if you want to tell everybody about the exciting news that you have since we last did the show. I know we kind of skipped over it in the first episode, but you've had something pretty major come up. So you want to tell everyone about that real quick?
That's true. Well,
Right.
it's pretty cool. So, guys, in my day job, I actually am a reporter for KTVQ, which is a big CBS affiliate, biggest station in the state of Montana where we live. But I am a contributing writer for Yardbarker as well. So a lot of people know the name Yardbarker. It's out there, pretty big online presence, obviously for sports writing. And happy to do it. Been excited. Got quite a few articles out there. A few on the Canes, a lot about the Dolphins, some on the Marlins. I've kind of been able to focus on my team, so I've been pretty excited about that. Obviously, guys, if you want to go check out, my articles, I would love it. If you look up Phil Van Pelt, Yardbarker, pull up my whole archive and check them all out. But I appreciate the plug, Garrett. And but honestly, I'm just excited that football's back. You'll probably see something about this game written by me too. So
I would
Canes,
imagine
guys.
that. Hopefully we get to read a happy article from Phil and Yardbarker here coming at the beginning of next week. I would assume.
Exactly. And we'll actually have some stats to dissect in this next week coming up, what we saw. So I can't wait for that to actually really break into what we saw, what we think can improve, break into the film a little bit on, what we can do better, what we're looking forward to, and kind of what impressed us and everything. And maybe, hopefully not as much about what let us down. But thanks, guys. Go Canes. We'll see you next week.
Go Canes. Thanks, everybody. Tell your friends. Like and subscribe. See you guys.